Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing air border runs. Had a lot of correspondence over the Thai New Year, and they're basically asking me about air border runs as opposed to sort of land border runs. What's going on here is people are curious, they all want to stay in Thailand as long as possible, it seems, using what's called the visa exemption, the Thai visa exemption stamp. So this is an exemption from a standard Thai visa wherein the person arriving in the country is granted lawful status, notwithstanding the fact they don't have an actual visa. So there are 60 countries whose passports will allow for a visa exemption, I believe approximately 60 countries. Now, prior to this month, it was a 45-day stamp on arrival. Presently, it's best my understanding, it's reverted back to a 30-day stamp, so you get 30 days on arrival in Thailand from here on in visa exempt status. So as a visa exemption, you get 30 days. And then it's possible to go ahead and extend by another 30 days here in country. Now, as we've discussed in other videos going all the way back to the promulgation of the decree itself, there was a decree which stipulated that there were only 2 border runs allowed per year on these types of passports that would be granted sort of unfettered access upon return to Thailand. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, okay, I understand land border runs, but what about air border runs? I'm going to go back and do a deep dive into this, but it's my understanding the original decree never made a distinction between land and air and sea. It was just, there were, you had 2 border runs a year. 2 you could count on, if you will. 2 times you can travel into Thailand in a given calendar year and be granted a visa exemption, and presently that means 30 days of status in Thailand upon arrival. So basically, you could essentially bank on being able to come and go twice. Now, as has been discussed out there, I think people are creating a distinction where none legally exists, although practically, yeah, I can see that there may be some more laxity, if you will, on the rule at an air border checkpoint. So coming in through an airport, through an immigration checkpoint, basically immigration may be more lax. They may allow more of that. This kind of makes sense if you view it in the context of the way like ASEAN works, where there's a lot of movement of labor, there's a lot of movement of business travelers, especially down here in ASEAN, for those who are unaware, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So, if somebody comes back and forth frequently from Singapore, yeah, they're being granted a high number of exemption stamps. So they may come up here every weekend or every other weekend or, every quarter, if you will, for a weekend. And they're granted a 30-day stamp. They're granted a visa exemption on arrival. And then people sort of say to me, well, you tell people you can only get 2 a year. Well, that's what the rules say. The decree says that's sort of what you can count on. Now, immigration has discretion in their own right to grant people access to the kingdom as and when necessary, or as and when they deem it appropriate, I should say, might be the more correct terminology to use. The point I'm trying to make with this video is, while there does seem to be more laxity regarding so-called air border runs, and I'll do a deeper dive on this, and maybe I'll have to do a video correcting myself, but at the end of the day, I haven't seen any distinction regarding so-called border runs where you're running over a land border versus the air. I've never seen a distinction on policy with respect to that. Now, as a practical matter, again, Thai immigration can see what you're doing. If you come in every 2 weeks and stay 2 days, they're not really bothered with that. Something that does bother them is what, in using phraseology by analogy, what we would call intending immigrants without proper documentation in the United States. So this is people using tourist visas to effectively live in the U.S. You get denied from being able to come into the U.S. eventually if you're doing that. Thai immigration will do something similar. I've seen it. Basically, they say, look, you're using tourist visas to live here. We don't want to see that. We want to see you being an actual tourist. I'm going to do another video on this because a lot of YouTubers have been talking about it. So I'll do another video on this as well, talking about it in a YouTube context. But for purposes of this video, understand, yeah, There are airport checkpoints, and yes, they do kind of have a different paradigm than, say, a land border checkpoint, but at the end of the day, understand, Thai policy, especially immigration policy, dictates that they do not want people living in Thailand utilizing tourist visas or visa exemption stamps.